The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
The National Weather Service has issued a severe thunderstorm warning.
Welcome to the Common Sense Practical Prepper Podcast, where prepping doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. Coming to you from a well-defended off-grid compound high in the mountains. Coming to you from his Florida room in Richmond, Virginia. Neither off-grid nor well-defended, unless you count as chickens and cats. Here is your host, Keith.
Hey all, this is Keith and welcome back to the Common Sense Practical Prepper Podcast, July 8th, 2025. My thoughts and prayers go out to the folks in Texas and in North Carolina. I read an article a few minutes ago where the death toll is 109, and I believe there's another 161 people missing. And as far as North Carolina goes, this could not have come at a worse time. I think we're, just 1 year shy of the anniversary of the hurricane that dumped all of that rain in western North Carolina that caused all that flooding and all that devastation. But certainly thoughts and prayers out to the folks, especially those in Texas, in that summer camp where so many young innocents were lost. I want to talk about AI for a second, and there was a lot of videos going around July 4th, George Washington crossing the Delaware and fighting the British, and then a couple British officers, they had little videos that they made and that sort of thing. And they were funny, don't get me wrong. But I didn't know they were AI initially, and I picked up on a few things. AI has come a long way. It's come a long way in the last year, almost at a point where you can't even distinguish an AI video from a true video with an actual human being acting. A lot of people have mentioned that just in a few years, there's going to be a lot of unemployed actors in Hollywood because AI is going to be able to take over, and they're no longer going to have to pay a Tom Cruise or somebody 30, 40, 50, 60 million dollars to be in one of these blockbuster movies. They can just produce it digitally in an office. They won't have to go out to locations all around the world. They can all literally just do it from the comfort of their little computer suite. But where this goes and how I think about this is there's going to become a time, if not already, where voice AI, your voice can be copied and mimicked, and you cannot tell the difference. A family member, friend would not be able to tell the difference between the AI version of your voice and then your actual voice. Well, the same goes for video and especially photographs. So what I worry about, let's say there's a situation politically, socially, and it's just going to take just a little bit to push a certain segment of the population over to then resort to some sort of violence, whatever it happens to be. I can see somebody putting together a video of a politician or some sort of leader, a community leader, and them saying, oh, we're not going to stand for this. I need you to take to the streets. And to a lot of people who believe that that is a real person, it is the actual person, making those statements, there'll be a certain percentage of that audience that will take that as gospel, and they will go out and do whatever AI-generated person told them to do. It's just that last little spark to set off a riot, a revolution. I can see that as a propaganda tool. I can imagine, wars have been started for less, but I can imagine you sitting at home and the president, regardless of who he or she is, comes on the TV and it's not the real president or a cabinet person or a member of Congress, but they get up on the podium and they say that the government's being overthrown, martial law is being declared, and this goes out over the internet and it's shared instantaneously all over the world. A lot of people are going to believe that. A lot of people are going to go out and act. There'll be a lot of panic, and it's going to be very difficult to reel that back in, because then who do you believe? You had this AI-generated person say these things, and now the poop hits the fan, and then the actual law enforcement, the actual government official, the president, whomever comes on radio or TV and delivers an address saying that no, this was an attempt by some other group to incite riots, civil unrest. And who are you going to believe? Are you going to believe the AI generated version? Or now are you thinking, oh, they're just trying to cover their tracks and now they're trying to walk it back? And as if you didn't trust the government enough, then something like that happens. But I can see that happening in a lot of different scenarios, and it's frightening. It's frightening, actually. So something I was thinking about the other day when I was watching those videos that made their rounds around the social media. They were the videos themselves were quite funny, but I was picking them apart, going, man, these things are really, really good. Okay, when we talk about prepping or any situation in life, we would think that we are prepared. If you're an athlete, if you're a baseball player, you're a F1 driver, a NASCAR driver, whatever you happen to do, you would hope that before the race, before the event, you're a marathon runner, that you have prepared, you have done everything you can to prepare yourself to do well, to win the race, to succeed, to set your personal best in this given circumstance. Well, if you're serious about being prepared, again, regardless of the situation, civil unrest, supply chain issues, several days without electricity, food, and water, whatever it happens to be, we would all think that we have done enough to be prepared for a given situation. You think to yourself, let's say you have a family. What would I do? And I've talked about situational awareness and what people would do in certain situations. You're sitting at home, there's a knock at the door. Before you get a chance to get to the door, somebody kicks in the door and one or two armed individuals run into your house. Most people have thought about that type of scenario and what they would do. Most people would be prepared. So you get into a car accident. What am I going to do? Well, here's my wallet. Here's my registration. I need to call my insurance company. I need to get a tow truck. So just little things and big things. We all think about these and how we would react. Same comes to prepping. If there is a severe storm and I lose power for 3 days, I would think that I have the necessary supplies to make it through those 3 days. If there was a situation where it was several weeks, would I be able to rely on family and friends and coworkers, and then the food and stuff in the pantry, would I be able to then get through that situation? My little solar generators, I got the chickens and all that. I would think, yes, I'm prepared. Well, what happens when you're not? What happens when a really good plan goes completely sideways? There was a Prussian military planner way back in the day that said the best plans never survive the first contact with the enemy. And other folks have said different versions of it. Mike Tyson said something like, everybody's a hero till they get punched in the mouth. The best battle plans go to hell once the bullets start flying. People have, made their own little versions of that. The same thing can happen with what we prepare for. Now, I am not prepared for a nuclear, biological, or chemical attack. So I'm not going to pretend that I know what I'm going to do if a nuke gets dropped on DC or a nuke gets dropped at Norfolk Naval Base. I'm 110 miles south of DC and about 90 miles west of Norfolk Naval Base. So I'm in a pretty bad spot, either way you want to look at it. I'm not prepared for any of those. Now, a biological or chemical, you have to seal the windows and respirators and masks and all sorts of things, a decontamination room. I'm going to hose myself down in the garage. I'm not prepared for any of those scenarios. I'm not going to pretend that I know what I'm going to do. But for other type of situations, I believe that I am prepared. Now, you need contingency plans. What happens if I've thought everything through? I've got my little checklist. I've read a bunch of articles, followed a bunch of people on YouTube. And then there's a little bit of a curveball gets thrown into the 3 or 4 days without power. So now it's 110 degrees how am I going to stay hydrated? How am I going to keep the chickens cool? How am I going to keep the cats cool? How am I going to keep myself cool so I don't get sick? Well, I would hope that I have prepared for that. But there's a very good chance that even with the best preparations, you're not going to succeed. When you think you know what you're going to do when the two armed people break into your house, well, I have a shotgun by the door, or I keep a handgun by the nightstand. However you have thought about and prepared for that situation, what happens if they get into the house before you can get the firearm? What if, they're between you and the firearm? What if they grab a family member and you're not able to get to the firearm? Then what do you do? Everybody needs a contingency plan, and we need to go ahead and understand that even with the plans that we think we have, that can always go south. It can always go sideways. How you have prepared yourself is not how it's going to play out. So you need to be very, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess fluid in your plans. Don't be so strict. We're going to eat this on day 1. We're going to eat this on day 3. And day 4, we're going to do that. And then if we have the bug out, we're going to go here. Don't get me wrong. It's nice to have plans. It's nice to have contingencies. But try not to be too stringent. Try not to be too focused. I know a lot of people would think, well, I have my little checklist and here's all the things. Now that's fine. So you go through your pantry and you check off, oh, here's the beans, here's the tortillas, here's the rice, here's the tuna, evaporated milk, whatever you happen to have. That's one thing. And it's not a bad thing to make recipes. Oh, well, with this amount of rice, we're going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. But within the first month, we're going to have to eat this because the shelf life is coming due. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what if you don't have enough fuel? What if your fuel sources you have set aside or that you prepared for are gone? What happens if someone steals your generator? They steal the 3 propane cylinders you had under the deck or behind the shed. Then what do you do? So always have alternatives. Always have contingency plans. But your contingency plans are not going to be as robust as your first plan. Now, if you have prepared so well that plan A, B, C, and D are just as robust as each of them, I think I said that right, as each of one another, I think I just confused myself even more. If plan A is just as good as plan B, as C, as D, then good on you, because you're probably in the minority. So the best we can do is to prepare the best we know, and we don't know what we don't know. I'm sure, and I've made this mistake. I have prepared. I have gone forward with plans. I'm going to buy this. I'm going to put it here. I'm going to freeze dry that, knowing that I didn't have all the information and I had to back up a few steps or had to alter those plans. So be very forgiving. Be very fluid with your plans. Don't be afraid to have to change a plan. Don't be afraid to have to modify something, because when the grid goes down for 3 days or 5 days or 10 days, it's not all puppy dogs and rainbows. It could go bad really quick, and you need to have contingencies. What if the water's contaminated? What if the plastic barrel you had your water in leaked, or it leached up some chemicals or some gas or kerosene that you had on the garage floor because you didn't have those blue barrels supported or sitting on top of a 2x4, not a pressure treated 2x4, but just plain old 2x4. Because as we know, garage floors that are concrete, they will leach the chemicals up from the ground, up from the oil changes, up from the antifreeze spills that were there years ago that you thought you cleaned up. So what is your plan if your primary water source is contaminated? I don't know what mine is. So now that I just said that, I'm going to have to come up with a contingency. So do yourself a favor, go through your preps, check out your plans, and halfway through your plan, just say, what if I don't have these 3 things? What am I going to do? All right, folks, thank you so much for listening. And as always, please be safe out there. Take care of one another. And until next time.
Thanks for listening to the Common Sense Practical Prepper Podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. While you're at it, help spread the word by leaving a rating and review.